Welcome back to Michael's Sleep Well, where stories drift between dream and darkness. Tonight, we journey into a tale of ticking clocks, forgotten bargains, and a curse older than memory itself. In a quiet town where time seems to move just right, one apprentice uncovers a secret buried deep in gears and shadow. A secret his master tried to hide until he vanished. What would you do if time began to move backward? If each ticking second pulled you deeper into something ancient, waiting and watching? Turn off the lights, close your eyes, and listen closely. Because tonight, you'll hear the first chime of a mystery that begins with a single name. The Clockmaker's Curse. Let the story begin. The town of Elterlow was silent by 6. Shops shut their doors. Lamps flickered to life behind curtains. And no one lingered on the cobbled streets after sunset. It had been this way for nearly a century. Some said it was superstition. Others whispered of something older, something watching. But Tobias Wren wasn't afraid. He was a young apprentice clockmaker, recently moved to Elterlow to study under Master Horace Vance, whose name was legend among craftsmen. Vance's clocks were renowned not only for their accuracy, but for their artistry, strange gears etched in runes, ticking with a rhythm that felt almost alive. That evening, as Tobias cleaned the shop's brass instruments, a sharp knock rattled the front door. Odd, it was past curfew. Tobias hesitated, then drew back the curtain. A figure stood outside in a long, dark coat, face shadowed by the brim of a wide hat. The man carried something wrapped in velvet. The knock came again. Tobias unlocked the door, letting in a gust of cool, pine-scented air. "I'm sorry, sir, we're closed." "I seek Master Vance." The man's voice was smooth, ageless. "He will want to see this." He held up the velvet bundle. Beneath the folds, Tobias glimpsed clockwork, but older than anything he'd seen, delicate and rusted with age. "Master Vance is upstairs." Tobias's breath caught. The man had not asked, he had stated. Before Tobias could reply, the stranger stepped inside. Without another word, he walked past the counter and climbed the stairs. A deep creak echoed from above. Tobias hesitated. Should he stop him, warn Master Vance? But then the sound of voices reached him. Vance's low baritone, then a harsh metallic click, like the snap of a spring winding too tight. Then silence. Minutes passed. Tobias crept up the stairs. At the landing, he paused. The study door was ajar. Inside, the velvet cloth lay discarded on the desk, but the clockwork object was gone. So was the stranger. And so was Master Vance. Tobias pushed the study door open. "Master Vance," he called, voice barely a whisper. No reply. The study smelled of oil and old paper, a familiar comfort. But now there was a chill in the air, like a window had been left ajar. The desk was cluttered with gears, schematics, and a half-disassembled timepiece. The velvet cloth lay like a discarded shroud. Tobias moved closer, his eyes scanning the room for any sign of struggle. None. The high-backed chair stood neatly pushed in. The candle still burned, wax pooling over a stack of old blueprints. A gust of wind whispered through the cracked window, fluttering loose pages. One of them slipped to the floor, revealing a symbol Tobias didn't recognize, a spiral of jagged lines drawn in deep red ink, or perhaps something darker. He bent down, picking it up carefully. Along the edges were strange runes. They didn't look like any technical markings he'd learned. They looked ritualistic. A soft ticking sound came from behind him. Tobias turned sharply. On the shelf behind the desk, Vance's masterpiece sat, the astrarium, a spherical timepiece of copper and crystal powered by dozens of hidden gears. It hadn't worked in years. Tobias had asked about it once, and Vance had simply said, "Not everything is meant to tick." Now it was ticking. He stepped closer. Each second sounded wrong, like it was winding backwards, a soft metallic choking. The central dial spun slowly counterclockwise, as if time itself was unraveling. A whisper seemed to follow the tick, not a voice, not a word, just a pressure behind Tobias's eyes, like a memory trying to surface. He backed away. Something was very wrong. Tobias grabbed the strange blueprint and hurried downstairs. The main shop was empty, still and cold. The front door remained shut, the bolt untouched. No trace of the stranger, no trace of Master Vance. He locked the door, drew the curtains, and lit every lamp in the room. He even lit the fireplace, though the hearth hadn't seen a flame in months. Shadows still pooled in the corners. That night, Tobias didn't sleep. He sat at the desk, blueprint before him, studying every mark. He copied the runes into his notebook, carefully redrawing the spiral. The ink bled slightly into the page, as if the parchment resisted being understood. He flipped through Vance's books, tomes on clockwork theory, ancient calendars, and astrological alignments. Nothing about the spiral, nothing about the runes. Until near dawn, he found an old leather-bound journal with no title. Inside were Vance's own notes, tight, elegant script. But the last pages were different. The handwriting grew erratic, feverish. He came again. I thought I had more time. The astrarium began ticking, winding itself, after nearly 60 years of silence. The gears turn, and so too does the eye. The bargain cannot be broken. If I vanish, let no one rebuild it. Destroy the astrarium. The stranger carries the curse in his coat. Tobias reread the words until they blurred. His hand trembled. He looked toward the ceiling, where the ticking still echoed softly, impossibly. Something had come for Vance, something he had feared. And it had something to do with time. For the next 2 days, Tobias told no one. He worked silently in the shop, but he left the astrarium untouched. Its ticking never stopped. It echoed through the floorboards like a heartbeat. On the 3rd morning, he noticed something odd. The clocks were off, not broken, just wrong. Each was delayed by exactly 7 minutes, no matter how he adjusted them. He reset them all, but by evening, they'd slipped again. That night, unable to sleep, he crept back into the study. The astrarium had changed. A small panel on its side, one he had never noticed, was open. Inside was a tiny gear, turning counterclockwise, and engraved around the panel were tiny eyes, etched into the brass, unblinking. He stared into them. For a moment, he saw his own reflection in the brass. And behind him, something moved. Tobias began to see him. First in his dreams, the stranger, standing beneath the town's great clock tower, face hidden in shadow, always holding that velvet-wrapped object. Then worse, during the day. Tobias glimpsed him on the street, standing beyond shop windows or beneath fog-draped trees. But each time he turned to look, the figure vanished. The townspeople noticed Tobias's unease. "Bad dreams?" asked Mrs. Beale, the baker's wife. "You've gone pale as parchment." But Tobias said nothing. One night, the doorbell rang again, at 7 minutes past midnight. No one was there. Just a scrap of velvet lying on the doorstep, damp with dew. When Tobias lifted it, he found a gear inside, old, rusted, and etched with a spiral. Tobias sought answers from Eldhallow's archives. Buried beneath old birth ledgers and land records, he found a weathered folder labeled Clock Tower Incident, 1861. It told of the disappearance of Horace Vance's father, also a clockmaker. The report was vague. Witnesses spoke of strange lights above the tower, odd shifts in time, people forgetting whole days. Some swore they saw a man without a shadow. The file ended with a chilling note. All clocks ceased for exactly 7 minutes, then resumed. We do not speak of the clockmaker's curse. For those who remember, the ticking comes back. Tobias dropped the folder. 7 minutes. Tobias climbed the old clock tower. Dust and gears greeted him, along with silence broken only by the massive pendulum's swing. At the top, the view stretched across the whole of Eldhallow, a perfect town, still, too still. Then he saw it. Far in the forest stood a second tower, its outline nearly lost in the trees, a mirror of the one he stood in, but broken, crumbling. It wasn't on any map. He blinked, and in the reflection of the tower's faceplate, he saw the stranger standing behind him. He turned, nothing there. But the astrarium ticked louder now. He found her in the church records. Marla Hale, Vance's apprentice from 30 years ago, vanished. The priest, old Father Corrick, still remembered her. She was clever, he said, curious, too curious, always asking about the curse. Then she started seeing him, the stranger, tried to fix the astrarium. He lowered his voice. She went to the mirror tower. What happened? No one knows, but a week later her time stopped. Tobias frowned. She died. No, said Corrick. She stopped, froze like a broken watch. She's still up there in Vance's cellar, tickless. Tobias broke the lock to the cellar. It was dry and cold, the air stale with rust and old oil. Beneath a tarp in the corner, he found a glass coffin. Inside lay a young woman, face peaceful, eyes closed. Her hands clutched a half-built clock. Her chest did not rise or fall, but her skin looked untouched by time. He looked closer. A single gear was embedded in her wrist, like a wound that never bled. Etched into the glass were the words, "The apprentice must not wake the eye." The astrarium began to tick louder again. The clocks went mad that night. Everyone in the shop spun backward, hands twitching violently. The astrarium glowed faintly blue. Runes shifted beneath the glass. Tobias watched helplessly as the study's walls warped, the furniture twisting. Time fractured in the corners of the room. And from the center of the astrarium, a voice whispered. The gears turn, the pact breaks, the curse passes. Tobias collapsed, clutching his skull as a vision flashed before his eyes. The mirror tower buried in forest roots, and at its heart, a door made of bone, with a spiral lock. Tobias followed the vision. At dawn, he packed tools, matches, and the astrarium into a canvas bag. He left a note behind, just in case he never returned. The woods outside Eldhalo were ancient. Fog clung to the ground like a second skin. Birds were silent. Even insects dared not chirp. By midday, he found it. The mirror tower rose in broken silence, choked in ivy. Its clock face shattered, its pendulum long gone. He stepped through the cracked door. Inside, time stood still. Dust hung in the air like frozen snow, and the stairs spiraled down, not up. At the tower's heart, he found it, a great iron door with a spiral-shaped lock. He took out the gear from the velvet cloth and placed it into the center. It turned. The door opened with a hiss of air, stale and cold. Inside was a room of clocks, hundreds, maybe thousands, all stopped. Each one had a name inscribed on it. He found Vance, S. Mahler's, even his own. His hand trembled. Above the clocks, suspended in air, ticked a golden sphere, an older, darker astrarium. And the stranger waited beside it. The stranger removed his hat. No face. Just a hollow void, swirling with stars and gears. "You've come," he said. "Another apprentice." "What are you?" Tobias whispered. "A keeper, a watchman. I guard the boundaries of time." He gestured to the sphere. "Long ago, your master made a deal. He asked to slow time, to defy age. I granted him 7 borrowed minutes. And the cost. Another must take his place when his time ends. The curse is past. The wound reopens." Tobias stepped back. "No, I won't take it." "But you already have," said the stranger. The clocks began to spin again. Each name flickered. The gears clicked. The stranger raised a hand, and the air filled with the sound of reversed heartbeats. "You can end it," he said. "Destroy the core, but it comes with a price." "What price?" "Time collapses. Eldhalo's history resets. All who borrowed time are forgotten." Tobias looked at Vance's name, at Mahler's, at his own. If he destroyed the core, none of them would ever have existed. But if he didn't, the curse would pass to the next. And the ticking would never stop. Tobias lifted the astrarium. He placed it beneath the golden sphere. He opened its hidden compartment, revealing the spiral gear. One final turn would align the runes. He turned it. The stranger screamed. The sphere cracked. Light poured out. The clocks shuddered. The tower shook. Tobias felt time itself unravel. He saw flashes. Vance, young again, building the first astrarium. Marla laughing in the workshop. Tobias arriving in Eldhello. And then nothing. The clocks all stopped. Forever. The town of Eldhello still stands. Quiet, peaceful, no longer afraid of dusk. The clock tower is abandoned. The woods just woods. The clockmaker's shop is now a bakery. No one remembers Tobias, or Vance, or the astrarium. But sometimes, at exactly 7 minutes past midnight, a faint ticking can be heard. No one knows where it comes from. And if you listen too long, you might hear a voice whisper, "Another apprentice."